You're listening to the Armchair GM Sports Network.
This is Rod Mahood, your in-game voice of the Niagara Ice Dogs, and you're listening to the Dog Pound Podcast on the Armchair GM Sports Network, your podcast source for all game analysis, team interviews, and up-to-date news regarding the Niagara Ice Dogs.
Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of the Dog Pound Podcast, the official podcast of your Niagara Ice Dogs. This is your January 18th, 2023 edition. We're your source for all North American sports coverage here in the Niagara region, right here at the Armchair GM Sports Network. Make sure you're liking us on Facebook and following us on Instagram, as well as this show's podcast at Dog Pound Podcast on Twitter. That's where you're going to find all of our Ice Dog updates, and we are currently still the official Twitter of the Ice Dogs, as they're still waiting to get their Twitter account back from good old Elon Musk. Guys, if you're enjoying the video version of the podcast, make sure you hit that like, smash and subscribe, smashing that bell for all updates on video versions of our podcast that get released here on the network. And if you're listening on demand in audio, please give us some love on whatever audio platform you're listening to us right now. As always, I'm your host of the Dog Pound Podcast. My name is Brandon Caputo. You can follow me on Twitter at bcaputo_AGM. I keep forgetting it because I have my old handle here and it's messing me all up. And you can follow my co-host Kyle at JustKyle51. Kyle, we're back with another week of Ice Dogs hockey. The trade deadline has come and gone. This is going to be the team the rest of the year. And unfortunately, they come away with one out of 6 points through 3 games last week.
Yeah, as you guys can see in our thumbnail title there in the title of the episode, another week bites the Dogs, and another week has come and gone where the Dogs have gotten the proverbial bite in hockey, and another rough week for the Ice Dogs. And it's again, trade deadlines passed or gone or
come and gone.
Oh my God. And this is just, it's kind of like it's what we have to kind of deal with, right? This is our team going forward. It's all about building the team that we have now. It's tough when you have like the OA players. They're there obviously for the veteran leadership and to help the young kids who are going to still be here next year. But like as for the young players that will be here next year, that you're kind of getting the feelers out. You saw each game there was kind of like a different lineup, so you can tell that Coach Kuwabara was trying things out, seeing what works, seeing what not works with the current team that he has in place. So I guess you can take that as a positive out of those 3 games. Obviously, the Peterborough game was the toughest game to watch. I thought the Ice Dogs competed at least in the first 2 games. I consider the Peterborough game a wash, to be honest. From what I watched, that was a little tough to watch. But at least the compete level is still there. For the most part, like we said last week's show, at least we're seeing compete, right? It's not like they're just laying backwards and taking it for every game that they play. They're at least showing that compete level and showing that they're still going to be a tough team to play against. So you take the positives where you can. Clearly, obviously the negatives are clear as day. We're not going to sit here and talk about the negatives all day because that's not what we do here in this pod. We don't sit here and shit on the team, as people would say, for the whole episode. That's not us. We don't do that. If you're looking for that, go make your own podcast about that. We're going to sit here and talk about the positives and talk about these young teenagers and them building towards their possible NHL careers or wherever they go in their future endeavors. So, like I said, tough week, but again, you can take the positives where you can. The compete level's there. At least there's a lot of compete level, and there's a lot of promising young talent on this team that is a good sign for the future, you can say.
Yeah, they're hungry.
Yeah, like guys obviously like Kevin He, the acquisition of Bronson Wright. I think Bronson Wright has shown that he could be a very great huge defenseman back there for the Ice Dogs. And when I say huge, I don't even just mean his style of play. I mean, he is a big boy. He's like 6'7" on the ice. So, but he uses that, like I said last week's show, he uses his weight to his advantage and his strength to his advantage. And I think there's a lot of promise in Bronson Ride. We saw a lot of fire out of O'Flaherty in that one fight against the Owen Sound attack. I think it was Owen Sound.
Yeah,
it was Owen Sound attack. So, you can take bits and pieces out of the week to kind of still be optimistic for with this team.
Podolou getting top power play time as well. He's grinding. You can tell that he's, a high compete player. I like what I've seen so far out of Alex Assadourian. He's a smaller guy, but he really doesn't play like that. He's willing to scrap and fight in the corners and go for that loose puck. He actually got a goal, his first Ice Dog goal, but it was reversed because he unfortunately had a kicking motion on the goal. So he scored it, but then they took it away from him. So he's still waiting for his first Ice Dogs goal. And the Barrie game, not Barrie, Mississauga was actually something to be positive about because they were down 2 goals in the third period. It was a really just slow game. Mississauga was playing a good trap on them. And then the Ice Dogs basically just were able to break through and get 2 goals to tie that game, force it to overtime. They did lose in overtime, but at least they were able to come back from 2 goals, which is a good sign from a young team like that, to be able to battle back and through some tough sledding for 3/4 of that game and to have a good solid final 10 minutes there to really get the game tied. Andrew LeBlanc and Declan Waddick were the 2 goal scorers, so getting some contributions from guys that you need right now.
Yeah, and that's why when I bring up the compete level, like you have a game like that actually is a great example of that there's still fight in this team to be able to battle back like that. And that was a fantastic game out of the 3 games to be able to battle back and take it to overtime where, unfortunately it is what it is. Ice Dogs really haven't found success in overtime this year. It's kind of been one of their weakness. So when I see that they're going to overtime, naturally I'm going to think that, they don't really have the best there. I'm still going to root for them. I'm still going to hope that they can squash that demon of winning in extra time. But, unfortunately it is what it is, but at least they battled back to send it to overtime. And it wasn't the other way around. It wasn't the Ice Dogs leading and the team coming back and bringing it to overtime and winning. We're, kind of the shoe is on the other foot for a change with the Ice Dogs, because usually it's the other way around. But, yeah, another rough week for the Dogs. Again, they're figuring things out now for the future, especially with the coaching staff and management on what this team is going to be looking like next year. Right now, you're building towards next year now. And obviously the management now are going to be tied up with the upcoming draft with the potential of having 2 top 5 picks, guaranteed the 5th overall pick at least, but who knows where our first round pick is going to land. But as of right now, we have a good chance of landing 2 top 5 picks, which is going to do great things for the Ice Dogs for the future. And hopefully those 2 picks can pan out. So hopefully, and I assume the coaching staff, the management, and obviously the scouting staff is doing their due diligence with this upcoming draft, having 2 high priority picks there for the Ice Dogs. So the future is looking bright, though. Regardless of the amount of trades that this team's made, the amount of moves we've seen with the coaching staff, I still am a firm believer that this team is just not just because we're the official podcast, not just because we're there all the time. This is like me talking naturally, even as a fan. I do think the future for this team is bright. Like what the DeDobbelaer has done is restructured this team and has now built it for the future. So I think he did a very good job of doing that. Obviously, naturally, that wasn't the case in the beginning of the season, right? With what he said and what everyone said, we're going to build for a playoff run. But I mean, that's every team. What team starts the year saying, nope, this is a restructured year? No, you're not going to get anyone, no management out there that starts the OHL year saying, you know what? I think it's a rebuilding year. We're going to shit the bed for the rest of the year. Like, no management is going to come out and say that. So obviously he started the year saying that this team's a playoff team and he believes in his team. What do you want him to say? I just don't understand why these people give crap to management for saying that they believed that this team was a playoff team in the beginning of the year. Every team's management said that. Oh my God. I don't understand. Regardless of that, it is what it is. I'm happy with this team. I can't wait for the future. I'm excited. And you fans out there should be too.
Yeah, I think they've got a lot of top picks the next couple of years. Again, people, I know Devil's Advocate's going to say, "Oh, you're going to have a recruiting issue." I don't believe that. I want to see what the new scouting staff is able to do as far as recruiting, and Darren and Wes can really, get in there and show why Niagara is a good destination for players to want to come to, despite all the moves that were made. Darren was learning on the job as a first-time GM at this level, and he was honest about things. He made some mistakes, and he's trying to rectify them, which, good segue. We do have a conversation, the next episode of the DeDobbelaer's Radar. The radio voice of the IceDogs, Ted Lehman, recently spoke with Darren DeDobbelaer for the follow to the trade deadline, and Darren was very, very honest about things. It's going to be a very good interview coming up in segment 2 of today's show. It's going to take up most of segment 2, but it's going to be very telling from the IceDogs' point of view on where they are with things. We've also got head coach Ryan Kuwabara's wrap-up, and we also got a couple of pregame interviews with newly named assistant captain Gerard Keane and newcomer Alex Assadourian. Before we get into that, Kyle, I want to quickly give a shout-out to Bronson Ride that you spoke of earlier. He was named to the NHL Central scouting list for the upcoming draft. I think he was ranked in the 200s, but still, for
201, I believe it was.
Yep. So for him to be on that list, good for him. I think if an NHL team's looking for a big-bodied defenseman, he's probably one of your go-to guys with a mid or late round pick.
I mean, why not take a flyer on him if you have a late pick, like a 6th or 7th, or even if people are looking at him in the 5th? Take a fly on a big defenseman who's clearly shown that he uses his size to his advantage. He's quicker, a little bit quicker for a bigger set hockey player. And you like to think that like this era of the NHL is all about the small, but from what I've seen in the last year or two drafts, a lot of teams are drafting taller, like 6'4" and up. So, and
it's not like he's immobile, like he can move.
Yeah, he's not a Maytag back there. He's a guy who's gonna move around at 6'7" on the ice and can move the puck. And again, like I said, use his body to his advantage and grind in those corners and be a big net front presence. Like we said it in the box, or at least it was you that said it in the box during the Owen Sound game. You're like, man, they need to put Bronson Wright in front of the net on the power play. No one's gonna be able to move him, and the goalie won't see anything. Exactly.
And the one other thing to note before we get going is Kevin He was suspended for 2 games for the hit in Mississauga on Saturday. Felt bad for Kevin. I know it was not a hit that he intended to do, but when you get along the board, sometimes it doesn't take a whole lot of force when you're cross-checking or when you're touching a guy in the back to really have him go into the wall. Like Kevin was instantly like worried about the player, and there was obviously a brawl after because Mississauga was defending their player. He gets 2 games, so he missed the Peterborough game, and he will miss tonight's game against Sudbury. So just heads up on that. So Kevin He will be back in the lineup tomorrow against Mississauga. But
so the Booster Club, this Kevin He Booster Club, you'll have to move your tickets to Thursday night.
Yeah. But with that said, let's get to our feature pregame interviews here. Let's start off with IceDogs newcomer Alex Assadourian, formerly of the Sudbury Wolves. Joined in the pregame by the newest Niagara IceDog, Alex Assadourian, coming over from the Sudbury Wolves trade deadline day. Alex, what has it been like to get down here in Niagara? Was it a shock to you when you heard the news that you were being traded, or did you kind of see things, maybe a new opportunity elsewhere for you this season?
Yeah, for sure. It's been a great adjustment. I'm really excited to really show my game in Niagara and get more of an opportunity here. I feel like we're gonna do great things here upcoming, and the guys have been great. The transition's been really easy, and I just can't wait to get going here.
For IceDog fans that don't really know about you yet, what type of player do you hope to be for this team? What are like your strengths on the ice, and what kind of game do you try to bring every night?
Yeah, I try to make my teammates around me better. I like to play with high pace, high intensity. I'm a really competitive player. I hate to lose, and I'm just really excited, as I said earlier.
And going from your last year to this year, is there really something that you really tried to improve on, that you've noticed that you've really worked on as far as taking your game to the next level? Now getting that more of an opportunity now in Niagara with more ice time, do you see yourself kind of blossoming even more into the player that you're trying to be?
I've tried to work on all parts of my game. I'm always looking to improve on every aspect, and just trying to get better every day and be better today than I was yesterday.
What are a couple players that you try to mold your game after, maybe guys you looked up to when you're a hockey fan growing up, and guys you might try to play like and look up to?
There's a few. Brendan Gallagher's one of them. He's a really high pace, a lot of intensity player, works really hard. And Braden Point, he's just really electric and has a lot of skill, and I try to model my game after those two guys.
What do you feel about the weather in Niagara as opposed to Sudbury? Is that something that you're looking forward to as a Stouffville native? Do you like it colder, or are you happy with being in Niagara?
Niagara is let's just say a bit warmer than Sudbury. I actually love cold weather, so Sudbury wasn't an issue for that. I love the cold. I love going on outdoor rinks, and but it is nice to have warmer weather here.
Newest Niagara Ice Dog, Alex Assadourian, here on the pregame. Thanks so much for doing this, and we'll talk again soon.
Thanks a lot.
He's okay with the Sudbury weather, Kyle. I know you're not, but
oh God,
good,
no,
good.
Not in the middle of winter, and absolutely not.
What is with the new guys lately? And I love it. These players that they really look up to. I'm tired of the same answers, and I'm glad we got Zach Lavoie with Alex Kovalev last week. We got Alex Assadourian this week with Brendan Gallagher and Braden Point. I love it.
Like, I was fully expecting to hear Ovechkin, McKinnon, or McDavid. Like, one of the three. I was fully expecting to hear one of them, but that is, if you're modeling your game after Brendan Gallagher, I want to see you act like Brendan Gallagher on the ice then, Mr. Assadourian. I need you to be a pest out there, because that guy can put the puck in the net, but he can also be the biggest pest that a team needs on the team. So if you want to be that, if you want to be the Ice Dogs pest, by all means, the door is wide open for you. Take it and go with it, because the fans will love you for it.
And I really like what I've seen from him through his first week. Like, again, like I mentioned earlier, he's a small guy, but he's feisty. Like, he'll go in the corner and try to get out a puck. He's naturally, a center, but they've started him on the wing to kind of get him comfortable. But I've really liked what I've seen so far from him. He's really creating opportunities. They got him on the top power play. Like, I just think he's a really smart playmaker, and he's trying to make the players around him better, like he said.
Yeah, I've seen that too out of him. For a short player, he plays with a lot of grit. He plays like he's a bigger player than he is, which is fantastic. But like I said, if you want to be that gritty player and that pest, by all means, show it to us and be that player, because, again, this team could really use a player like that. And even a guy that wants to, like he said, he wants to improve all his aspects of his game, which is fantastic to hear. He says he's a high compete player and a high pace player. All that mixed into one makes you a great hockey player and a serious asset for this team. So if you show this team that you are that much of an asset, the team will love you, management will love you, and not only that, the fans will absolutely adore you. And the fans remember their players here in Niagara, and they adore their players. You can ask any former Ice Dog, and they'll tell you each and every single time the fans in Niagara are the best fans in the OHL.
Yeah, and it's interesting because there's actually been a lot of good publicity regarding this trade. There's a lot of people around the league that really like Alex Assadourian. I think was just underused in Sudbury for whatever reason. He's a second-round pick. Darren DeDobbelaer goes and picks him up. I think it's a smart and kind of calculated move there to see what you could possibly turn this kid into, because I think he could be, a really good diamond in the rough for this team moving forward.
Yeah, second-round picks can prove to be gems. Like Kevin He. Kevin He is clearly proving that he was a gem in the second round and should have been taken in the first round.
Yep. So with that said, let's get to our second pregame interview. This is with newly named assistant captain, overager Gerard Keane. Joined in the pregame by a newly named assistant captain of the Niagara IceDogs, Gerard Keane. Gerard, first off, congratulations on being given the A. Just what was that moment like when the coaching staff told you that you'd be getting a letter on your chest?
Yeah, it was a surprise for me. They hadn't let me know beforehand, and they called a team meeting and announced it in front of all the boys, so it was really cool. Everyone clapping and cheering you on and just happy for you.
And what's the transition been like, coming over from London, a great program there, and now being here in Niagara as a veteran? You spent so much time in the OHL, but now as an overager. Just what have you really learned from the whole process of becoming a leader on and off the ice at the OHL level? And is there any leaders that you really looked up to at the beginning of your career that's kind of molded you into a leader now?
Yeah, I was very lucky to be in London my first couple of years. I got to be a young guy while Bouchard, Boquist, my brother, Merkley, Alec Regula, all these guys were coming up and playing a lot. So I got to watch them every night and every day in practice. So it was really cool for me. So I hope a lot of these young guys are looking up to me the same way that I was to them.
Right, and again, it's a very young team now in Niagara, a lot of moving parts. Just how have you been able to keep a calm head and a positive mindset despite all the moves that have been happening, and now with the team going younger and things like that? Like, are you welcoming the challenge of being a leader on the ice as this team continues to grow through the growing pains of being a young team in the OHL?
Yeah, you just worry about your own game. That's all you can control at the end of the day. You can't control what the coaches are doing, what the owner's doing, what anyone's doing. You just try and play your best hockey and help the team win games.
And what's your just outlook for the rest of the season? Is there something that you're really trying to build on with your own game, or is there something that for the last, latter half of the season, the dog days of winter here, that you're really trying to do here for this club for the rest of the season?
I want to try and help this club make playoffs. That'd be really cool, I think, coming from the bottom spot in the OHL to a playoff team. That'd be a really cool run. So that's our goal. That's my goal.
Newly named assistant captain of the Niagara IceDogs, Gerard Keane, thanks so much for doing this today.
Thank you.
Kyle, good thoughts there from Gerard Keane. Never thought I would like a London Knight player, but Keener's grown on me. He's become like a solid leader as an overage defenseman brought in by Darren DeDobbelaer. I know we got a lot of criticism for giving up a second rounder and Alec Leonard in that trade, but I think what Gerard Keane brings to this team, they desperately need right now, especially with Landon Cato out of the lineup. He's just a stable presence back there as an overage defenseman, and I like his outlook, saying that they're still trying to make the playoffs. They're not just mailing it in. Like, they really believe that they can still try to get into that 8th spot, and you can tell the competitiveness with Keane, and even when when things aren't going well, like he's trying to get the guys going because he doesn't want to get embarrassed out there, and you can tell he really cares at the end of the day.
Yeah. I mean, at the time when we acquired him, it was a solid pickup, and he still is solid to the team at this point. But even when we picked him up, we had a lot of young players on the team that they needed that veteran leadership, and a guy like Keane, that coming from a London program, as he said, learning under Evan Bouchard and Boquist and players like that kind of he modeled his game after in London. It was a great trade when he came to Niagara. Congrats on him when getting the assistant captain as well. Yeah, him staying optimistic at a rough time in a rough patch that the IceDogs are having, a rough season that they're having, it's good to hear from him. Again, you can't criticize him for saying that he thinks that this team, that he wants to help the team battle for that last playoff spot, because in reality, it's not out of the realm of possibility.
No.
IceDogs are sitting, 12 points out of a playoff spot right now.
Yeah, I just pulled it up. So for you people listening in audio, they are currently 12 points behind the Sudbury Wolves, and they also have 2 games in hand, and they're playing Sudbury tonight. So that could be a big swing. And again, there's still some time left to go here. I know Sudbury's been good as of late. They're 6-2, 0-2 in their last 10. But, it's still possible for the IceDogs here.
Yeah, I wouldn't give up on this team just yet if you're looking at choosing to give up and what you said, mail it in. This team can do it, and I'm not sitting here hoping that they tank as well. Like I would love to see them make the playoffs. Don't get me wrong. Yeah, 2 top 5 picks would be nice, but making the playoffs would be even nicer in my eyes, because you're not only making the OHL playoffs, and anything could happen in the playoffs, but you're also giving that playoff experience to the kids on this team for the future. And I think that could do a lot and do wonders for this team with a little bit of playoff experience in some of these kids' first year or their second year in the OHL. So, or even some of the older players that haven't been there yet, and kind of, the OAs that want to finish their career on a high note and go to the playoffs, right? So they're not going to mail it in, this team. They're going to battle every single night, and they're going to try to make the playoffs. Again, 12 points out is not a far distance. I'd say if we were near the 30 mark, maybe we should. I don't know if that would be a realistic standpoint on coming back, but 12 points is not far at all, regardless of how far it looks, and it's doable. A good winning streak out of nowhere, and teams losing in front of them could bump the Ice Dogs into the playoffs. You never know. So good on Keane for having a good head on his shoulders and staying positive, like you said, through the dog days of winter.
So let's wrap up our first segment here with the head coach of the Niagara IceDogs, Ryan Kuwabara, and his thoughts for the 3 games over this past weekend. On the postgame with the head coach of the Niagara IceDogs, Ryan Kuwabara, following the 3-game week against Owen Sound, Mississauga, and here tonight in Peterborough. Coach, I know you only pick up 1 point, but right off the bat, the positives to take. Another week, your team doesn't give up a power play goal. The penalty kill has been sensational. Is that something that you guys are really leaning on as far as positives right now?
Yeah, for sure. We take little bits and pieces here and there when we can. It's tough to play a team like that tonight, and with some bodies down and stuff like that to really push as much as we want to. But definitely, our PK has been elite. Nothing I can say about that. That's going to change. We just work hard. We do the right things, and we're playing well. Then our power play, we got another one tonight, I think, didn't we? So that's 2 games in a row, which is positive. So that's making slow progress right there. But it's a tough league. It's a tough league. So we got to regroup a bit here. Maybe get some rest and treatment and stuff like that, and get ready for this week coming up. It's going to be a tough one.
Other than the bodies that have been out of the lineup, and you were shorthanded again tonight, down a forward, and then you lose Ride during the game, is there anything that you can pinpoint about what's going wrong right now, or is it just something that you're going up against some teams that are just going for it right now and had a really tough schedule ahead of you? Like, how do you evaluate this run that's kind of happened in the last week or so with trying to take away positives, but at the same time trying to get better and trying to work on these things that you're going to need to be as a young team moving forward the rest of the year?
Yeah, well, one thing for sure, our work ethic is definitely there. I can't fault the guys for taking shifts off. Definitely, every time they're putting their heart in their sleeve and they're working really, really hard, which is, that's a huge positive. It's easy to give up on games like this, and when things aren't going your way. But I tip my hat to the guys. If they can stay dialed in and stay working on systems and little things like that, then I'm pretty happy with that.
How are you assessing now? The trade deadline's come and gone. This is going to be your team the rest of the season. No more moves are going to happen. So how do you try to see what you've got in these guys now? Assadourian's here, O'Flaherty, Ride, and even Potaloo. These are the new guys in the lineup, and you've really got them engraved into the system now. Yep. So how long do you think before you really want to see this team come together, because they're still trying to learn each other, like we mentioned last week? Things are just coming together for this club as a whole unit, and this is going to be the team moving forward. So how do you and the coaching staff try to address that with the guys?
Yeah, it's just, week by week. You can't really forecast where guys are going to be. They're going to take their time. Like, I'm not trying to put any pressure on anybody right now, right? I don't think pressure does much for kids this age. It's tough enough. They got lots of outside pressures going on, and the rink should be a happy place to come in and work hard and to learn and to be better hockey players. So, for me, they're going to try different combinations, different looks, and see what happens.
And I noticed tonight you made a couple changes to the power play. Some guys earned some ice time. You got Evan Klein up there, Michael Potaloo. What have you seen from those guys as bottom 6 players to reward them with top power play time and being able to go out there as power forwards to try to do the job there, and just giving these guys opportunities? You talk about all the time, if you're going to play well, you're going to earn some opportunities. Doesn't matter if you're playing bottom 6 minutes.
Yeah, definitely. Well, they've been really strong in practice. When we practice our power play and PK, those are guys that are standing out and they're working hard and they're challenging. So when we get small injuries here and there, they're able to slide in, and I'm comfortable putting them there. Right, they're going to have to play in those positions at some time moving forward. So, little experiences here and there, definitely when they get in those high pressure situations, when it's a 1-goal game or something we have to protect leagues or get, get a goal, they're going to be comfortable in that and be able to execute for us.
And going off the Mississauga game last night, you're down 2 goals in the third period. It's one of those defensive games. Mississauga was playing you well with the trap, and then you get the 2 goals to tie the game and really earn that point last night. I know it wasn't the ending that you wanted, losing in overtime, but to be able to have come back from 2 goals in the third period, are those kind of the signs that you want to see from a young team, not crumble when under the pressure and really just keep battling and earning themselves those points every night?
Yeah, for sure. I think that's the part that builds character. And when things aren't going your way, you got to rely on something. You can't just play individually. And, as we play a team game together and we stand up for each other and we learn and grow together, that's really important for me building this team moving forward.
And last question, I know big week coming up. You just came off a 3-game week, going to 4 more games. 3 of them are at home, though, at the Meridian Center. So are you hoping to kind of build off that home crowd for 3 of the next 4 games coming up? Again, you start off on a Wednesday, so it's another long week here. So is that a positive that you can take, that 3 games you're going to be sleeping in your own bed next week?
Yeah, definitely. The travel, it's always tough with these guys. A lot of these guys have school or they have other pressures, like I said. So, we're going to, be happy to be home to a certain extent. But, the crowd definitely gives us some energy, and I just want us to, take period by period. Every shift we got to go out there and try to win their shift. And then at the end of the 60 minutes, hopefully we're on the right side.
Head coach of the IceDogs, Ryan Kuwabara, thanks so much for doing this, Coach. And again, drive safe, and we'll talk again next week.
Thanks very much. Take care.
Kyle, really good stuff, as always, from the IceDogs head coach. He's not panicking on things. He's taking positives when he can. Another week, we should mention that the penalty kill has not given up a goal. They've been going up against some elite-powered offenses, some teams that have loaded up at the trade deadline, and their penalty kill has really given them a big boost, despite not showing the results maybe so much on the power play. I know they did get a couple this weekend, but the penalty kill has been phenomenal.
Yeah, like I said in the beginning of the show, there's some positives you can take out of this week, and one of them is that the penalty kill for the IceDogs, proving that what they've done in practice and what they've built as an established penalty kill is doing wonders for this team, because they're going to get into penalty trouble, and sometimes you get into more penalty trouble than you'd like. But it shows that this team's penalty kill as a unit and as a team is strong, and something that not only the coaching staff, but the team itself can rely on to go out there and kill these significant penalties. So that was a big note there from Ryan Kuwabara on this team, even calling it elite, which he is right in his own mind to say that, because they have shown to be an elite PK. So love that he's saying that at least the work ethics there, they're not, again, they're not mailing it in. They're at least working hard every night, working hard in practice, and it's just one of those things where they're going to take it week by week. And that's honestly the only thing you can do at this point is work at it week by week, work at it in practice. And I love how he said to relieve the pressures off these players, because they go through enough pressure at this time in their lives anyways, wanting to create less pressure situations for them and kind of take it week by week, whether that's changing the lineup and kind of rolling with stuff. So I loved hearing that from Coach Kuwabara.
Yeah, and I loved just the fact that he's not panicking. Like, he's very calm about things. He's talking about guys earning time, like Evan Klein and Michael Podolou, like they're getting top power play time because they're working hard in practice and showing that they're capable guys to be in front of the net, cause some havoc, and see what happens. So I really like that from this coach. Just doesn't matter where you were drafted. If you're really playing hard, it doesn't matter if you're a 4th line forward or a 1st line forward. He's going to give you that opportunity, which we saw this weekend with guys like Evan Klein, Podolou, and Alex Assadourian earning a lot of play time.
Exactly.
So we're going to take a commercial break on the show today, guys. We're going to come back, and most of segment 2 is going to be this exclusive what is on DeDobbelaer's radar with the GM of the Niagara IceDogs in his interview with the voice of the IceDogs, Ted Lehman, from earlier this week. So it's going to be a really good one. You're not going to want to miss it, and we'll come back and discuss what Darren had to say. But we'll take a commercial break and be right back on the Dog Pound Podcast, the official podcast of your Niagara IceDogs.
Experience a new way to play daily fantasy sports and esports on Thrive Fantasy. Thrive's game concept revolves around player props, which are simple over-unders on player stats. There are contests for traditional sports including the NFL, NBA, MLB, PGA, and cricket, as well as esports titles including CSGO, Dota 2, League of Legends, and more coming soon. Here's how to play. Choose your lineup of over-unders for top-tier athletes that have the biggest impact on the game. Each prop has a fantasy point total based on how likely it is to hit. The more points the selection is worth, the riskier it is. Rack up the most points and win a share of the prize pool. Thrive is awarded over $2 million in cash, so come and prop up today.
You're listening to the Armchair GM Sports Network, the Niagara region's best local source for North American sports podcasting coverage. By sports fans, for sports fans.
Hey, this is Landon Cato, and you're listening to the Dog Pound Podcast, the official podcast of the Niagara IceDogs.
Welcome back to segment 2 of today's Dog Pound Podcast. Brandon Caputo and Kyle Lake are back with you here. Guys, if you're enjoying the video version of the podcast, you know what to do. Hit the subscribe button, smash that like, smash that bell for all updates on videos that get released here on the YouTube channel. Big things coming to the network in the next month or so. I'm in the process of moving, and there's going to be some major things going on, and I'm going to be posting a video on the YouTube channel regarding what's going to happen in the future with the network. Ooh. So, big spoiler alert there, I guess you could say.
Wow.
But, yes, big stuff coming to the network, bringing a lot more stuff for you guys for New Year, New Me, I guess, or New Us, 2023.
Look at you go saying the catchphrase. I don't that.
Oh, I cringed even saying it, but regardless, guys, really good interview coming up here on segment 2. Darren DeDobbelaer really goes in depth about, what went wrong, why the team decided to go in the direction that they went in, and what his plan is moving forward. They have a plan here with Ryan Kuwabara as the head coach. Darren DeDobbelaer, he's had the growing pains of being a first-time GM at this level, but the last couple of trades he made have been fantastic. So I think he's learned a lot, and it's going to be very telling for the fans that really want to know where his head is at. Ted really goes... takes us, as a great storyteller that Ted is, he really just tries to, ask Darren the questions that, again, not just trying to grill him, but asking him the questions in a constructive manner, and really asking Darren his thoughts, not just saying, "Oh, Darren, your team stinks. Why does it stink?" Saying it in a constructive way for DeDobbelaer to really, give us quality answers back. And again, it's a great job by Ted, but I don't know if you had any thoughts before we play it.
No. Again, I think Darren gets a lot more flack than he should, but there's always going to be fans like that out there. No matter what sport team you cheer for, there's always that part of the fan base that are just outrageous, call them croutons. So crouton's going to crouton. It is what it is.
And again, we're not saying that people can't criticize moves or the team or whatever. But there's a way you can go about it without just being a completely belligerent comment, just saying sell the team, move the team. Those stupid stuff like that. We're just not even gonna. We're not even. Nobody's even gonna pay attention to that because it's just nonsense. So, again, I can't wait to play this for you guys, and then we'll come back. We'll discuss it, and then we'll wrap up the show. But really good interview here on the next episode of What Is on DeDobbelaer's Radar.
What is on DeDobbelaer's Radar?
Well, he's the owner, but for the purposes of this discussion, he is also the general manager of your Niagara IceDogs. He's Darren DeDobbelaer. As always, Darren, first of all, Happy New Year officially, and thanks for doing this.
Happy New Year to you as well. It's always a pleasure to be on the show.
I want to ask you something before we get into some specifics. Last weekend, we were in Barrie. I had a conversation with Marty Williamson. I've known him for over a decade. And I found him almost scattered in his thinking as the trade deadline was coming up. This was Saturday, and I found I looked like his mind was going a million miles. So the question I want to ask you off the top, Darren, you face deadlines in other leagues. How does this compare? What was deadline like in the Ontario Hockey League your first go-round?
Well, first of all, your comment about Marty is I have the greatest respect in the world for Marty. We talk all the time. He's been very supportive and helping me out here. He's a fantastic individual coach and GM, so I can learn a lot from him, that's for sure. But to answer your question, Ted, in Junior B and Junior A, there's not that much movement. The odd time, but, kids are more, embedded into their community and more in high school and stuff like that. There seems to be a lot more movement in the OHL because, it's not as much as, passion for them as much as it is maybe a career move and stuff like that. So, and winning and losing is very important to the financial model for a lot of teams. So there's a lot more movement, a lot more action in the OHL, that's for sure. I thought my head was going to blow up yesterday, but it was fun.
Now the thing, have you been shocked like I was 15 years ago when I got here to find out how much agents are in this process?
The agents, we all need them. We all know them, and the kids need them, and they're very involved. And we've had a lot of agents, and for whatever reason, they want their player traded. They want them to go to a place that has more opportunity for them, and vice versa. The players we picked up, same thing. They thought maybe there's more opportunity at a different place, and maybe the grass is always greener type of thing. But, the agents are very involved, calling and saying, I don't like my client playing in this role. We need a different role. We need a different look. We need something to get them going. And I get that. That's their job. I respect the agents for doing that.
Yeah, but as a successful businessman, do you sit back sometime and go, I didn't draft you. I drafted that player?
Yeah, you know what? I get that. And, sometimes common sense doesn't prevail. And I want to say, where do you want to be? You want to be with the team that wants you the most. Who wants you the most? The team that drafted you. So, but that's not always, there's in today's day and age, there's not accountability all the time. And sometimes when a player's not performing, they don't look in the mirror. They blame it on their environment or their teammates or, but that's in every walk of life, and I guess we need to embrace that and not resist it because it's not changing.
Owner and GM of the IceDogs is Darren DeDobbelaer. You made a comment a couple of times back when we talked, and you said if players didn't want to be here, you'd accommodate them. And I only mention that because when I first got to talk with Zach Lavoie, first question, how did you find out about the trade to the IceDogs? And he snickered and said, well, I requested it. So it's got to give you a smile to get a high-end scorer who wants to be on your team.
The culture of the dressing room is such a big part. Different coaches coach different systems. It's not for every player. Some coaches maybe want to coach a run and gun. Other coaches are more defensive-minded. It's not for every player. And if you have an unhappy player in your team, in your dressing room, it becomes contagious and it rubs off on the other players. So at the end of the day, you need to do what's right for your organization and get proper value and good value for your player. But I firmly believe that, if the player's not happy and he's not buying in, he's going to take you down.
So let's get right to the nitty-gritty, Darren. All the changes that were made. Do you want to talk first about Alex Assadourian? He was the acquisition. What are you going to get in that young guy?
You know what? So Alex is a great player. He's got a lot of speed. Again, he wasn't, he was plugged down the lineup. He's a left shot centerman. They had him playing on the wing. You're going to see him on the wing a little bit until he learns our systems, and then we'll get him to his proper position. But we think there's a lot of upside with him. He's got a lot of speed, and I watched him in Carnivale this summer, and I think he'll be real good for us.
Okay, so the biggest question, I guess, the elephant in the room, and you're the man to answer the question, Darren DeDobbelaer, what right now is the direction of your team?
So, that's a great question, and I haven't changed the direction of the team. I haven't. The team, quite honestly, has been at the bottom of the standings for way too long. So I tried to bring in some good players, which I did. They were all good players. Zito's a great player. Pappas is a great player. Dam's a great player. They're all good players to complement our current good players. But for some reason, they didn't mesh. It didn't work. So what we did was we thought we'd reboot with players, and it's not a rebuild. We still believe we can make the playoffs. We still think we can make the playoffs. It's just a rebuild, get some value for players that don't want to be there, but it's not a rebuild. It's we're still trying to make the playoffs, and we think we can get in the playoffs, but the direction hasn't changed. We don't think that St. Catharines, Niagara region should ever be a rebuild with this facility and this fan base, so we want to win. And the players that we brought in over the summer, Wes and I, we thought was going to do it because they were all good players, but for some reason it didn't work, so we need to, reboot. But our focus has not changed at all. We want to be a playoff team, and year after year after year.
When it comes time to talk about what exactly the plan is for the team, I mean, I'm sitting here looking at future drafts. We're in the first 80. Coming up in the spring, you have 2, 4, 6 picks. 2024, you've got 5. Potentially, 2025, you're going to have 6 more. And 2026, 2, 4, you've got 7 of the top 80 picks. So for those who don't believe that this team can be good a lot sooner than they think, how do you answer those critics?
And a very good friend of mine, who's a very well-known hockey person, told me in the summer, you need to build your team through the draft. You need to draft properly. You need to develop your own players, your own Kobe Barlows, your own Hunter Heights. You need your own Kevin Hees, your own. That's how you need to build your team. So we have acquired a lot of draft picks that will help build our team. We have obviously 2 first rounds, a second and a third and a fourth for this coming draft. So we believe that is a good way to build it. We put a lot of pressure on our scouts this year. They put a lot of time and effort into it. We had a meeting the other night. So we're on the good path there. And then again, you use your assets to bring in, your players to put you over the top. If you see all the movement that I'm sure you're aware of, most players were acquired with draft picks. So we think we're set up really good, not only for today, but for the future.
When you talk about the future, Darren, you can only, by league rules, unless I'm mistaken, dress 3 16-year-olds. And you're going to have all those picks coming up in the spring. Is that also capital if the phone rings again for a team that just spent all their capital making a run for it to potentially, in their rebuild, that you're able to find some pieces to make you better?
And again, we got Andrew Vermeulen, who was our 4th rounder this year. He's playing in Brantford. He's played 5 games already. He's going to play more as the season goes on. He's the leading scorer in Brantford right now. So he's, not getting the token 2 shifts a period. We're playing the wheels off him in junior hockey. Mark Hunter did it with Oliver Bonk last year. He played junior B last year, defenseman on the London Knights. He'll probably be a first-round NHL pick this year. So, just because you're a second or a third-round pick, it doesn't mean you have to be an ice dog. We can go get you developed very well, playing junior hockey against 20-year-olds, whether it's junior B or junior A hockey against 20-year-olds, and then they'll hit the ground running as a 17-year-old. So, it's a great point, but they don't all have to be ice dogs.
Well, when you look at that, and we talk about, you mentioned Kevin He, and I wanted to bring him up because here was a second rounder.
I think that I agree, and I don't even know how to comment about that because everybody sees something different. We see Kevin He day in and day out. So we know he's great. We know the kid's going to be a pro hockey player one day. The young man, not a kid anymore. He's going to be a pro hockey player one day. We see him day in and day out. And, of course, we're biased because he's an ice dog. But 100% we thought he should have been there. But there are also other players that weren't on the list that should have been there. The teams that's there are great. So it's a great league. It's the OHL. It's hard to even comment on that.
Well, I find it really impressive that when he played center and did not look out of place, I commented, I said, Kevin, you're back home at center ice. And he looked at me and said, Ted, I played on the wing in my draft year. So you may have discovered something nobody figured out till now.
It's funny, I'd love to take the credit for it, but I won't. That was Ryan's doing, and we'll see how that works. But so far, so good. And if Ryan found something, then that's outstanding. But no, I'd like to take the credit for that, but that was 100% Ryan.
Darren DeDobbelaer is here, and if Darren DeDobbelaer and Ted Lehman have anything in common, it's staying away from social media. But I got to bring it up for one reason. That negative universe on social media has already decided you're not getting the Memorial Cup. I'm guessing you're not believing any of that.
No, I'm not. I don't think that anybody can compare to what we can offer here in Niagara. Is the team strength going to hurt us? It will. It will hurt us 100%, but we think that we can be competitive. We think we are competitive. We've only had a couple of blowout games this year. So we think we can be competitive. We are, I believe, I may be wrong, but I believe we are 4-5-3 since we made the coaching change, which isn't outstanding, but it's a heck of a lot better than how we started the season. So, you can't look in the rearview mirror, but I wonder where our record would be if Ryan was our coach right from day one. But who knows? But I think our team's very competitive with our 2 first-rounders next year. It's going to be better with our, possibly 2 import drafts next year, for sure 1. That can be better too. So we've had the goalie of the week this year. So I think people are really underestimating how good our team is.
So it's funny with this Memorial Cup bid, Darren, because it comes off to me like the election of a pope. We know what happens. Nobody knows exactly how it happens. So you have, I'm sure Michelle, your lovely wife, is going crazy saying, don't you take a break? You come out of the trade deadline, and I guess your presentation to the CHL comes up probably before the end of the month.
Well, it's funny you say that. I've got the most supportive wife there is in the world, and her joke all the time is the reason we've been married for 24 years is because I never see them. So there's a lot of people doing a lot of work for me, and again, I can't take credit for this. Raven and the staff and my committee's just been working their tail off on this, so I'm going to take all the credit, but I can't.
Well, I'll leave you with one thing, Darren DeDobbelaer, Country 89, Giant FM, whatever resources, whatever we can bring, how we can bring the fan base, to be your backing, we're going to be there to do it. So you've got the offer officially here on the radio. Anything you need, we're going to provide it.
Right. You know what? You guys have just been outstanding. You've been great right from day one. The support from the radio station and from the fans is just, I can't believe it. Here I am 7.5 months in, and I'm still shocked by the support I get.
Wow, Kyle, a lot to dissect there. Again, we've got about 7 minutes left in today's show, but we wanted to play that whole segment for you guys because it was very telling from Darren DeDobbelaer himself. This is not just us speculating what he thinks. Yeah. Like this is what straight from the horse's mouth, I guess you could say. From the GM and owner Darren DeDobbelaer, Kyle, what were your biggest takeaways from that interview with Ted? And again, we'll give a plug to the radio voice of the IceDogs, Ted Lehman, on Country 89, Giant FM. You can listen to all IceDogs, home and away, and you're home for the IceDogs Country 89.
I don't know if I can sit here and dissect everything because then it'd take me another hour. So it was a lot, and I think he answered a lot of questions and what maybe people are thinking of or wanting to know what he was thinking about when he was making all these trades and such. I think that was one big thing I took away is like he doesn't see it as a rebuild, but a retool, because he mentioned about bringing all those players in the beginning of the year and like since last June, like the Pappas, the Dan, like all the good players that he traded for. And he basically said, and it happens, and it can't happen. Unfortunately, it didn't mesh, right? It didn't mesh with the current players that we had, and he had to find a way to move those pieces out because they didn't mesh well. And he moved those pieces out, and he brought some pieces in. But at the same time, he mentioned, speaking to someone that he knows professionally, didn't mention their name, but that you have to build through the draft, and you have to build your own, like he mentioned, Kuwabara, the Hunter Heights, through the draft. And what did he do? He turned those players that he traded for into people back, but also a plethora of draft picks. As Ted mentioned, there are so many draft picks in the top 80 rounds in the next couple of years that the Ice Dogs are locked and set for the future. And we got to see that's what Darren's thinking. That's, I guess you can say that's what's on his radar for this team, is that he wants to build this team through the draft. So, he mentioned he's starting it off with this past draft with Kevin He, obviously the best player to come out of that draft. And he mentioned Andrew Vermeulen, who's currently developing in Junior B. I love that he mentioned that the Junior A and the Junior B is not necessarily a downgrade if you're not making the Ice Dogs team right away. It could also be a great tool to build for the OHL. You're playing against people that are necessarily up to 20 years old as a 17-year-old, and you're going to come to the OHL when you're 17 with all that experience of playing with older players. So he brought up the good point with London in them developing
Oliver Bonk
through the Junior B system. So
who they wouldn't trade for Shane Wright.
Exactly. So you can see how high London was on that player. So I love that he mentioned also too in the beginning with Marty Williamson and talking to him about, obviously about, GMing and owning a team in Niagara. Marty wasn't an owner, but he was a coach / GM of the Niagara Ice Dogs. So he had that experience of being here and what to expect. So I imagine he went to Marty and asked him about everything. So there was a lot that he said in this interview, but those were like the main takeaways. And I think the most important ones, because I think the main question on a lot of people's minds are, why did he make all these trades and what was the thought process behind it? We got that all in this interview, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, he told us everything. It didn't mesh. It just they've been at the bottom for too long. He thinks that they can be competitive with the 2 first-round picks next year and the plethora of picks they're going to have for years to come. And he still thinks that this should be the destination for the Memorial Cup, whether it is or not. He still believes in this area and that Niagara shouldn't be in a rebuild. Again, I don't know if that's, possible, but if that's what he truly believes, that realistically this team should always be competitive and always going for it, that's what his plan is here with Niagara. He's not just trying to bottom out and completely just tank the season or, put the franchise in a really bad spot. Like he's restocking the shelves, like you kept mentioning before the interview, like for the future, and they have a plan of how they want to go about things. They've got the coaching staff in place that they want now, and it's just, I was really glad to hear like the reaffirmation from Darren about, just the plan that's the biggest thing. There is a plan in place.
Yeah, and obviously giving high praise to the players that we have now. The draft pick we got in Kevin He, giving full credit to Coach Kuwabara for finding a possible gem at center with him, but also the high praise for some of the new players coming in, like Assadourian that Ted brought up, and how he was undervalued on a Sudbury team who were valuing a lot of other players and really didn't have a spot for him, and how Darren and management saw that and think that he could be a very great contribution to this team and get the playing time that he deserves. Like you said earlier in the show, he was highly sought after by not only Niagara, but a lot of teams were looking at Assadourian and getting him on their team. So we were fortunate enough to get him on the team through a trade, and I think the Ice Dogs are lucky enough to have him. We'll see how he develops with the team going forward. Like we said, Darren's ultimate goal here is to not only bring in players that help the team, but ultimately he wants to build through the draft and build his team through that way, rather than always trading picks and acquiring players that way. So I really like that aspect of it. And I think not only what I said earlier in the show, that the future is bright, and I think everyone should look at this team that the future is bright, but you just got a reassurance from the owner and GM of the team on what their goal is for the future. And I think it's nothing but a bright tunnel ahead for this team.
Yep, and I like what he said about Kevin He he's going to be a pro hockey player one day, and he's saying he's not a boy, he's a young man already. So again, we've been saying that about Kevin He. He's mature beyond his years already as a rookie in this league, so he just continues to impress and make that second round pick look even better right now. But Kyle, before we wrap up, let's quickly talk the games upcoming. We've got Sudbury tonight, which is the rescheduled game from before Christmas, and then tomorrow night against Mississauga, which is a rematch from this past weekend. And then we've got Kingston coming in on Saturday, and then at Mississauga again on Sunday. So Mississauga 3 times in a week and a half going to be playing the Steelheads, which is interesting. But
get to see your boy Saga on Sunday.
Oh yeah, great! I saw him this last weekend too. But 3 of the 4 games are at home at the Meridian Center. So guys, get down there, support the team. If you guys have tickets from the Sudbury game before, you get admission to this game tonight. And the Kingston game is also a special night. It's Bell Let's Talk night. First, I believe it was 500 fans. 200 fans.
250. Sorry, 250 fans get a free Bell Let's Talk toque.
Yep.
Regardless of what you think of Bell Let's Talk, I have my opinions on it. You get a free toque out of it. So
yeah. So it's supporting mental health causes. Other than the Bell stuff, I'm sure they're going to be honoring some people pregame, stuff like that. So get down to the Meridian Center. You got 3 chances this week to get down.
It's big 2 weeks.
Yeah.
The next 6 games, 5 of them are at home. So.
There you go. The IceDogs could pick up a lot of points here. So we'll see how that goes. Kyle, final thoughts before we wrap up.
Another tough week. I mean, every week's going to be tough now at this point with the IceDogs, the way the schedule is. Every team is in front of them in this league. So you're going into every game as a tough game, but at least we know now the IceDog compete level's there, and we'll see how it plays out. Again, regardless of where they are in the standings, folks, like we said, they're not out of a playoff spot yet. Get down to the Meridian Center, cheer loud, as Rod would say, be loud and be proud of this team, because they really do. This team really does thrive when you guys are allowed in the Meridian Center. They thrive off that energy and they use it to their advantage. So if you can, get down to the rink and support the team. It's always a good time at the Niagara IceDogs in game days. So and it's such a beautiful arena. So go down and support the team, guys. 3 home games this week, 2 next week. It's going to be a great time.
That's going to do it for today's Dog Pound podcast episode. Make sure you're following us at Dog Pound Podcast, liking us on Facebook and Instagram. Make sure you're following myself at bcaputo_AGM, my co-host Kyle at JustKyle51. Guys, until next week, this is the official podcast of your Niagara IceDogs. Go Dogs, go, bark, 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 and we'll see you guys again next week. You're listening to the Armchair GM Sports Network.